I was living the life that millions of girls around the world dream of. I was on the magazine covers. I was walking the runways. I was hosting TV shows. I had the fame, the money, the beauty, and the attention. To the outside world, I was Aliza Kim, the successful model and actress who had it all. But if you could have looked inside my heart back then, you wouldn't have seen happiness. You would have seen a prison. I remember standing in front of the mirror in dressing rooms, surrounded by makeup artists and stylists, looking at my reflection and feeling absolutely nothing. I felt like a mannequin. I felt like a piece of meat. The industry that promised me glamour was actually sucking the soul out of me. I was a slave to their standards, a slave to their definition of beauty, and a slave to the approval of strangers. I was Aliza the model, but I had no idea who Aliza the human was anymore. I grew up in a very religious home in the United States. My father is a Catholic, and many of my family members are pastors. I was raised to love God. I always believed in a creator. Even in the darkest moments of my career, amidst the parties and the superficial lifestyle, I never lost that connection. I would talk to God in my own way. I would say, God, I know you are there, but I don't know where I belong. As I climbed higher in my career in Asia, the emptiness grew deeper. I fell into depression. I started asking questions that my upbringing couldn't answer. I looked at the Trinity, and I was confused. I looked at the statues in other faiths, and I felt nothing. I wanted to know the truth, not the version of truth I was born into, but the absolute truth. I remember one night, I was at my lowest point. I fell to my knees, and I prayed a prayer that changed my destiny. I said, God, I want to know you, not the God of my parents, not the God of my culture. I want to know you. Please, if you exist, guide me. Show me the path, and I promise I will follow it, no matter how hard it is. That was the beginning of my research. I started studying everything. I looked into Buddhism, I looked deeper into Christianity, and then I looked into Islam. Honestly, I had the same stereotypes as everyone else. I thought Muslim women were oppressed. I thought they were weak. But as I started reading the Quran, I was shocked. I wasn't reading about oppression. I was reading about rights. I wasn't reading about a distant God. I was reading about Allah, who is closer to us than our jugular vein. The more I learned about the nature of God in Islam, Tawheed, the oneness of God, the more my heart started to beat faster. It just made sense. It was logical. It was what I had always believed deep down inside but didn't have a name for. I realized that I had been a Muslim my whole life. I just didn't know the title. I believed in one God. I believed in the prophets. I believed in accountability. Islam wasn't changing who I was. It was confirming who I was. But I was scared. I was terrified of what people would say. I was a model. How could a model become a Muslim? What would my family say? My father, the devout Christian, the fear held me back. I kept studying in secret, hiding my books, hiding my search. Then came the moment I couldn't run anymore. I was meeting with a teacher, learning more about the faith, and I realized that knowing the truth and not accepting it was a betrayal of my own soul. I remember thinking, if I die tonight, what will I say to my Creator? That I knew the truth, but was too scared of people to accept it. I decided to take my Shahada. I remember sitting there, about to say the words, Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah. Tears started streaming down my face. Oh, I was sobbing, not tears of joy initially, but tears of fear. I was crying because I thought, I'm not perfect. I'm a sinner. I have a past. How can I enter this pure religion when I am so flawed? My teacher looked at me and said something I will never forget. He said, Islam washes away everything that came before it. You are starting fresh. You are like a newborn baby. In that moment, a mountain was lifted off my shoulders. I finished the Shahada. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. The feeling that followed is hard to describe. It was lightness. Physical, spiritual lightness. It was as if the chains of my old life, the vanity, the ego, the pressure, just shattered. I felt free. For the first time in my life, I wasn't a slave to the fashion industry. I was a slave only to Allah. And in that slavery to God, I found my true freedom. The transition wasn't easy. I had to leave my career. I had to change my lifestyle. I remember the first time I put on the hijab. People think the hijab covers beauty, but for me, it revealed my dignity. When I covered my body, I forced the world to focus on my mind and my soul. I was no longer an object to be looked at. I was a servant of God to be respected. My family struggled. It was hard for them. But they saw the change in me. They saw that Aliza became kinder, more patient, more at peace. Islam didn't take me away from them. It taught me to treat them better than ever before. Because paradise lies at the feet of mothers, and ties of kinship are sacred. Today, when I look back at my photos from the magazine covers, I don't see success. I see a lost girl. And when I look in the mirror now, covered in my hijab, without the fame and the cameras, I see a woman who found her way home. I traded the runway for the prayer mat. I traded the applause of the crowd for the pleasure of my creator. And I can tell you, with all the honesty in my heart, I have never been happier. I have never been more at peace. If you are out there, feeling that same emptiness I felt, chasing things that never satisfy you, I invite you to just ask. Ask the Creator to guide you. Be sincere, because if you take one step towards Allah, He comes to you running. My name is Aliza, and this is my path to light.